Hello! Welcome back to Lurgle Stories. My name's Logan. I'm glad you're here. Today we are going to be reading chapters 5 and 6 of Anthony Ant by Linda Dennis. We've already done the first 4 chapters, so if you haven't seen them yet, go over to Lurgle Stories YouTube channel and they'll be there ready for you to watch. Big thank you again to Austin Macaulay Publishers for letting us read this book. And there'll be a link in the description box below this video where you can go and buy your own copy of this book if you'd like to. So, quick recap. Last time we read about how Adam and Alex Ant got some of the other ants together in a meeting because they were a bit fed up of how Anthony Ant was always being the best. And they thought that it's all down to the pocketbook that Anthony Ant uses to make his notes so that he remembers all the important things he needs to do, which is very sensible. But we think that Adam and Alex Ant are a bit jealous of Anthony, so they're trying to hatch a plan. This chapter is called The Plan. Let's get started and see what they're going to be getting up to. Hatching the plan was not as difficult as Adam and Alex first thought, as it was fairly obvious that Anthony Ant was an ant of habit and followed regular routines and procedures on a daily basis. It really could not be easier. All they had to do was watch him, then decide where to pick up the pocketbook without him even knowing. What a marvellous idea, Adam Ant thought to himself. He straightened his back, pushed out his slightly protruding tummy, and beamed with pride, thinking that he would soon see the misfortunes of Anthony Ant. The meeting of the 6 ants took place as arranged, and everyone was told what the plan would be. Adam and Alex were very happy with what they were about to do. However, there was a feeling of uncertainty from a couple of the other ants that this was a bit unkind and that it might land them in greater trouble than it was worth. Adam Ant squashed those feelings immediately by saying, "Anthony Ant needs to be put in his place once and for all. Taking his pocketbook would just keep him on his toes and will improve his memory skills instead of him being over-reliant on the written word," chuckled Adam Ant sarcastically. Eventually, everyone agreed to the plan and that it would take place the next day. The next day, Anthony Ant set about his usual business of getting ready for his work duties in the colony. He was on the early morning shift, which started at 5 a.m. He took a shower and put on his uniform, which had been neatly pressed the night before, ready for the morning. Now he was settling down for his breakfast of dried insects and plant sap. All of which was very nourishing and kept him fit and well. He glanced at his watch and suddenly jumped to his feet, as time was marching on and he had to be off. He certainly didn't want to be late. Anthony Ant was never late. Today, Anthony was protecting one of the nurseries, where Queen Anastasia's eggs were stored and where baby ants were cared for by the nurse ants. This was a top security job, and Special Advisor Aaron Ant had especially selected Anthony to do this top job because he knew he could totally rely on him. Anthony grabbed his pocketbook, which he always placed on a small round table by the door, so he would not forget it on leaving his quarters. He hurried down the corridor and greeted a cleaner ant who was just finishing his night shift and returning home. He spoke to him most mornings, and he was always cheerful and friendly. If Anthony was early some mornings, he would chat to him about his family and ask how his children were doing at school. Today, however, Anthony noticed how sullen and unhappy he looked, and that he barely responded to his cheery good morning. What could be wrong with him? Anthony thought. Maybe he just didn't feel well, or perhaps he'd overworked himself on the night shift. Anthony hurried on, as it was quite a way to the nursery block. It was at the far end of the colony, and there were several security checkpoints to get through along the way. Just when he was about to reach the first security checkpoint, he heard an almighty bang, like a gunshot or something exploding. He felt slightly panicky as he was so near the security checkpoint. He wondered if someone was intending to barge their way through, or even going to attempt shooting their way through. He stood motionless, trying not to move or even breathe for that matter, as he needed to listen to check if he could hear any more. What was surprising was that no one else came or seemed to be around this particular area. Just as he was beginning to think that he had imagined it all, a group of 4 or 5 ants in balaclavas came zooming around the corner at top speed. They were almost airborne when they completely knocked Anthony to the ground. Anthony's head hit the ground with a thud. He tried to sit up, but all he could see was a rainbow of stars and bright flashing lights before passing out. Anthony was awakened by another special soldier ant that had come to find him, as he was now late for his duties at the nursery. Anthony couldn't really remember much, only that he had heard a loud bang and then somehow ended up on the floor. The soldier ant looked bewildered and astonished to hear about a loud bang, as there was clearly no one else around. He helped Anthony to his feet and asked if he needed to see the first aider ant, which Anthony declined. He felt perfectly fine now, although a bit shaken up, but nothing would stop him protecting Queen Anastasia's nursery. Anthony, together with the soldier ant, sprinted as fast as they could through all the checkpoints to reach the nursery entrance, and arrived only a few minutes after 5 a.m. Anthony was never late for anything, and he was hoping nobody was around to notice that he was a few minutes late today. He prided himself on his punctuality. The special soldier ant scurried off to continue with his duties, and hoped Anthony would soon feel better, although the whole incident seemed quite strange and somewhat unreal. Anthony was grateful to the soldier ant, as he had entered all the code numbers from memory at each checkpoint as they rushed through to get to the nursery. There was no time for Anthony to get out his pocketbook to double-check if the codes were correct, which he did normally as he didn't want to make a mistake. Chapter 6: The Realization. With a sigh of relief at having arrived at his destination just about on time, he turned to the final checkpoint, which was the main entrance to the nursery, and began to enter the code number, which he knew well. The gates did not move. He tried again, and again, until suddenly a high piercing alarm started blasting out, and blue flashing lights bounced off the walls, making him feel quite dizzy and disorientated. Just as he was thinking what to do, he felt for his pocketbook. He had always placed it in his back pocket, until a few days ago when he decided, for security reasons, to place it in his inside jacket pocket. However, before he could put his hand inside his jacket, there was a loud, booming voice shouting, "What do you think you are doing, Anthony Ant?" Anthony knew immediately who that was. Yes, it was Special Advisor Aaron Ant. Special Advisor Aaron Ant went crazy, shouting and screeching at Anthony until his face turned blue. He was beside himself with anger, and Anthony really thought he was going to explode at any minute. "You have disturbed the entire nursery, waking all the little babies, let alone Queen Anastasia. She thinks there is a raid and is dashing about getting the nurses to bundle up all the eggs, as well as carrying the babies to a safe house further underground. She is hysterical." Anthony Ant stared at the floor and wished it would swallow him up. He felt so ashamed and could not forgive himself for upsetting Queen Anastasia and indeed everyone in the nursery. Special Advisor Aaron Ant told him to go back to his quarters as he had done enough damage for one day and he couldn't face any more upset. He told him to be in his office by 5 a.m. the next morning. Anthony was mortified and was trembling at the thought of tomorrow. Would he be suspended from his duties? Would he lose his job? He couldn't bear thinking about it. He had worked so hard to become a special soldier ant. The very thought of not being able to carry on his duties as a special soldier ant made him feel sick to the core. Anthony started to amble back to his quarters, feeling downcast and despondent. What was he going to do now? He felt for his pocketbook as his mind had gone blank and he couldn't remember any of the codes for the checkpoints going back. He stopped dead in his tracks. He put his hand in his inside jacket pocket and felt. There was nothing there. He frantically tried all of his other pockets, even though he knew they would be empty. Just as he was trying to work all this out, the special soldier ant that had helped him out earlier that morning came past on another duty and asked what was wrong. Anthony explained as best as he could, because now he was very confused about all the incidents of the day. The special soldier ant walked Anthony back to his quarters so he could sit down and think about what had happened in a logical manner and retrace his steps slowly. The special soldier ant began to think that there was something odd about the loud bang which Anthony had mentioned. Or maybe Anthony had somehow lost his memory from banging his head on the ground. He couldn't work it out, and he really didn't know about the pocketbook or what it symbolized. Nevertheless, he decoded all the checkpoints for Anthony so he could get back safely and without having to stress himself over the pocketbook or trying to remember the codes. Anthony entered his quarters, which were warm, cozy, and instantly calming. He decided to curl up on the couch with a hot cup of plant sap, where he would be able to relax and enjoy the sweetness of his drink and hopefully fall asleep. Later, he hoped that he would feel better and be able to unravel the mysteries and mishaps of the most awful day of his life. My goodness, what a day! I think that the plan that the other ants were hatching went off. Anthony now can't find his pocketbook, and he was knocked to the ground by other ants wearing masks. I think they've hatched a very, very nasty plan indeed, and he's already in trouble. We'll just have to wait and see next time what happens and what Anthony Ant decides to do about his pocketbook. And I hope that the people who've taken it from him, I hope they get in trouble, because you should never take things from other people. You always ask nicely if you want to borrow something, but you should never steal from anyone. Very, very naughty. So, let's have our fingers crossed for Anthony Ant that next time when we read, he'll figure it out and he'll maybe get his pocketbook back. I'll see you next time. Bye.